The bright afternoon sun reflected off the glass doors of the Grand Plaza Hotel as Marcus Thompson pulled up in his black Mercedes SUV. The iconic building stood tall in downtown Boston, its limestone facade gleaming against the blue sky. Marcus glanced at his wife Diana in the passenger seat, both sharing a knowing smile. Their two children, Jordan and Maya, sat in the back, tired but excited after their long flight from Chicago. "Remember, we're just checking in today," Marcus said softly to his family. "Tomorrow is when we'll announce the ownership change." Diana squeezed his hand, pride shining in her eyes. After 20 years of building his investment firm from nothing, her husband had just bought the entire Grand Plaza hotel chain, starting from this flagship location. The family stepped out of their car, and a young valet rushed forward to help with their luggage. Marcus had chosen to dress casually for the trip, wearing dark jeans and a comfortable navy sweater, saving his usual business suits for tomorrow's official announcement. Diana looked elegant yet relaxed in her traveling clothes, while their teenagers were dressed in typical high school fashion. As they walked through the revolving doors, the grandeur of the hotel lobby took their breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and marble floors stretched out before them. The space buzzed with activity, business people hurrying to meetings, tourists taking photos, and hotel staff moving efficiently about their duties. Jordan, their 16-year-old son, whistled quietly. "So this is all ours now," he whispered to his father. Marcus nodded, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. Maya, their 14-year-old daughter, was already taking everything in with her sharp eyes, probably planning changes she'd suggest later. Diana had always said Maya had inherited her father's business sense and her mother's attention to detail. Even now, the teenager was noting how the front desk staff interacted with guests, mentally taking notes like the future business leader she hoped to become. The Thompson family approached the front desk, where a middle-aged white woman with graying blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun was typing on her computer. Her name tag read Sarah Walsh, front desk manager. She didn't look up immediately, even though there were no other guests waiting. Marcus cleared his throat politely. "Good afternoon," he said in his warm, professional voice. "We have a reservation for the presidential suite." Sarah Walsh finally looked up, her eyes moving slowly over the family. Her pleasant professional smile faltered for just a moment, so quickly that most people wouldn't have noticed it. But Marcus and Diana had seen that look too many times before. Their children tensed slightly, recognizing what was coming. "Do you have a reservation?" Sarah asked, her tone suggesting she didn't believe they did. She drew out her words slowly, as if speaking to someone who might not understand English well, despite Marcus's perfect diction. "Yes, we do," Marcus replied calmly. "Under Thompson, Marcus Thompson." He pulled out his ID and platinum credit card, placing them on the counter. Sarah barely glanced at the documents. "I'm afraid there must be some mistake," she said, her voice taking on a falsely apologetic tone. "The presidential suite isn't available right now. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the Holiday Inn down the street. They have some lovely family rooms." Just then, a white couple walked up to the desk beside them. The woman wore an expensive-looking dress, and the man was in a business suit that Marcus recognized as being off the rack. Nothing special. Sarah's face immediately brightened. "Welcome to the Grand Plaza. How may I help you today?" she asked them cheerfully. "We'd like your best available room, please," the man said. "The presidential suite is available, if you'd like to see it," Sarah replied promptly, without even checking her computer. Diana's hand found Marcus's arm, squeezing it gently. Their children shifted uncomfortably, but years of similar experiences had taught them all how to handle such moments with dignity. Marcus's face remained perfectly calm, though his eyes held a hint of something, not anger, but determination. He reached for his phone, sending a quick text message while Sarah continued chatting with the white couple. Within moments, his phone buzzed with a response. Marcus allowed himself a small smile as he read it. Tomorrow's announcement was supposed to be a formal affair, but sometimes plans needed to change. The next few minutes would teach Sarah Walsh and the Grand Plaza Hotel staff an unforgettable lesson about judging people by their appearance. Sarah Walsh looked back at the Thompson family with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She began typing loudly on her computer, making a show of checking something that Marcus knew wasn't true. "As I said, there seems to be an error with your reservation," Sarah said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "We're completely booked in our higher-end rooms. I could offer you a standard room on the third floor, though it might be a bit cramped for your family." Diana Thompson quietly pulled out her phone and started recording. After 15 years as a civil rights attorney, she knew exactly how to document these situations. Her daughter Maya moved closer, watching everything with dark, intelligent eyes, while Jordan stood tall beside his father, his jaw clenched but silent. The white couple who had just been offered the presidential suite looked uncomfortable. The woman tugged at her husband's sleeve, whispering, "Steve, maybe we should try another hotel." But Sarah Walsh didn't notice their discomfort, too busy trying to shoo away the Thompson family. "I insist on speaking with the manager," Marcus said calmly. His voice was firm but polite, the same voice he used in million-dollar business deals. "And I'd like you to check the reservation again, properly this time." Sarah's face reddened slightly. "Sir, I've been working here for 15 years. I know when rooms are available. Perhaps you're confused about which hotel you booked." She emphasized the word confused as if speaking to a child. Just then, Mr. Peterson, a hotel manager, hurried over. He was a short man in an expensive suit, with thinning gray hair and round glasses. Sarah had pressed the silent alert button under her desk, something she often did when dealing with difficult guests. "Is there a problem here?" Mr. Peterson asked, standing beside Sarah. His eyes darted between the Thompson family and the white couple, who were now backing away from the desk. "No problem at all," Marcus replied smoothly. "Just a misunderstanding about our presidential suite reservation." He pulled out his business card, simple black and gold, with Thompson Investment Group printed in elegant letters. "Maybe this will help clear things up." Mr. Peterson barely glanced at the card. "Sir, I trust Ms. Walsh's judgment completely. If she says the suite isn't available, then it isn't available. We can't just have people walking in and demanding our best rooms without proper." He paused, searching for a word that wouldn't sound obviously discriminatory. Diana stepped forward, her phone still recording. "Proper what, Mr. Peterson?" she asked quietly. "Proper appearance? Proper skin color? Please, finish your sentence." The manager's face flushed red. "That's not what I meant at all. This is simply about maintaining our hotel's standards and—" Marcus held up his hand, interrupting the manager's stammering. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number, putting it on speaker. After 2 rings, a familiar voice answered. "Richard Parker speaking." "Richard, it's Marcus Thompson. I'm at the Boston Grand Plaza right now. Could you please remind me when the ownership transfer papers were finalized?" There was a pause on the line. "Marcus, the papers were signed yesterday afternoon. You own the entire chain now, including the Boston location. Is something wrong?" The silence that fell over the front desk was deafening. Sarah Walsh's face turned pale as milk. Mr. Peterson's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Even the white couple, who had been pretending not to listen, turned around in shock. "Thank you, Richard," Marcus said calmly. "Would you mind sending Mr. Peterson here the email about tomorrow's ownership announcement? It seems he hasn't checked his messages today." Within seconds, Mr. Peterson's phone buzzed in his pocket. His hands shaking slightly, he pulled it out and read the email. His face went from red to white so fast it was almost comical. Sarah Walsh gripped the edge of the front desk, her knuckles turning white. She looked like she might faint. The computer screen in front of her still showed the presidential suite's availability, completely open and ready for guests, just as Marcus had known it would be. Jordan and Maya exchanged small smiles. They'd seen their father handle discrimination before, but this time was different. This time, he owned the place. The lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel had grown unusually quiet. Other guests had stopped to watch the scene unfolding at the front desk. Diana Thompson's phone continued recording as she stood beside her husband, her lawyer's mind already documenting every detail of what had just happened. Mr. Peterson was the first to break the heavy silence. "Mr. Thompson, sir, there must be some kind of misunderstanding." His voice trembled as he spoke, his earlier confidence completely gone. "If you'll just come to my office, we can discuss this privately." Sarah Walsh had turned so pale that the freckles on her face stood out like dots on paper. Her hands shook as she tried to close the computer screens showing the empty presidential suite. I didn't know," she whispered. "I would never have." Never have what, Ms. Walsh? Diana asked, her voice calm but firm. Never have lied about the suite's availability if you'd known who we were. Never have suggested we go to a budget hotel if you'd known my husband owned this one. Maya, their 14-year-old daughter, stepped closer to the desk. Unlike her parents, who had dealt with such situations countless times before, she felt angry tears forming in her eyes. We saw you offer the same suite to them, she said, pointing to the white couple who were now trying to quietly leave the lobby. Why was it available for them but not for us? Jordan put his arm around his sister's shoulders. At 16, he had already learned to handle these situations with the same quiet strength as his father. It's okay, Maya, he said softly. Let Dad handle this. Marcus Thompson stood straight and tall, his casual sweater and jeans suddenly seeming more powerful than any business suit. He looked around the lobby, noting the other hotel staff who had gathered to watch. Some looked embarrassed, others curious, and a few seemed worried about their jobs. Mr. Peterson, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the quiet lobby, I'd like you to call all available staff members to the main conference room, immediately. The manager nodded quickly and hurried off to make the announcement. Sarah Walsh remained frozen behind the desk, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Ms. Walsh, Marcus continued, you'll join us there as well. She nodded weakly, her eyes fixed on the floor. The white couple who had been offered the suite earlier tried to slip away, but Diana called out to them. Please stay, she said. We'd like you to be part of this discussion too. Your perspective as witnesses could be valuable. The couple hesitated, then nodded. The woman stepped forward. I'm so sorry about what happened, she said. We felt horrible watching it, but we didn't know what to do. That's exactly what we need to talk about, Marcus replied. Standing by silently is part of the problem we need to fix. While they waited for the staff to gather, Marcus turned to his family. Maya was still fighting back tears, but now they were tears of pride as she watched her father take control of the situation. Jordan stood tall beside her, his face showing the same quiet dignity as his father's. Diana stopped her recording and saved it carefully. What are you planning? She asked her husband softly, though she already had a good idea. Marcus smiled slightly. This isn't just about punishing someone for discrimination, he said. This is an opportunity to create real change. We're going to turn this moment into something positive. The family watched as hotel staff members began making their way to the conference room. There were people of all positions: housekeepers, maintenance workers, restaurant staff, and management. Some looked nervous, others curious. Dad, Maya said suddenly, can I say something in the meeting too? I want them to understand how it feels from a kid's perspective. Marcus looked at his daughter proudly. Of course you can. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the youngest voices. As the Thompson family walked toward the conference room, they didn't look like victims of discrimination anymore. They looked like leaders about to turn an ugly incident into a teaching moment that none of these hotel employees would ever forget. The main conference room of the Grand Plaza Hotel was packed with staff members. The large space, usually used for business meetings and wedding preparations, now held nearly 50 employees. They sat in rows of comfortable chairs, whispering among themselves, wondering why they had been called so urgently. Mr. Peterson stood nervously at the front of the room, his forehead shining with sweat under the bright lights. Sarah Walsh sat in the front row, staring at her hands folded in her lap. The white couple who had witnessed everything chose seats near the middle of the room, feeling both uncomfortable and compelled to stay. Marcus Thompson entered the room with his family, and the whispers immediately stopped. He walked to the front, his casual clothing standing out among the uniformed hotel staff. Diana and their children took seats in the front row, opposite from Sarah Walsh. Good afternoon, everyone, Marcus began, his voice warm but commanding. I'm Marcus Thompson, and as of yesterday, I am the new owner of not just this hotel, but the entire Grand Plaza Hotel chain. A wave of surprised murmurs swept through the room. Several employees sat up straighter in their chairs. A few looked worriedly at their managers. I hadn't planned to announce this until tomorrow, Marcus continued, but something happened today that made me change my plans. He turned to Sarah Walsh. Ms. Walsh, would you like to explain to your colleagues what happened at the front desk? Sarah's face turned red. She stood slowly, her voice shaking. I'm I told Mr. Thompson and his family that the presidential suite wasn't available, even though it was. I suggested they go to another hotel. She paused, then added quietly, I didn't know he was the owner. And would you have treated us differently if you had known? Maya suddenly spoke up from her seat. The teenage girl's voice was clear and strong, despite the tears that had dried on her cheeks. Would it have mattered then? The room fell silent. Sarah Walsh couldn't answer. Diana stood up next, holding her phone. I'd recorded the incident, she said. Would anyone like to see how a family was treated at your hotel simply because of their skin color? Several staff members looked down, embarrassed. Others nodded, wanting to understand the full situation. Mr. Peterson looked like he wanted to disappear. Marcus raised his hand. We're not here to shame anyone, he said. We're here to learn and to change. My daughter Maya has something to say, and I want everyone to listen carefully. Maya walked to the front of the room, standing beside her father. At 14, she was tall for her age, but still looked young among all the adults. I've been to lots of hotels with my family, she began. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened. But usually, we just deal with it quietly and move on. She looked directly at Sarah Walsh. Do you know what it feels like? To be excited about staying at a nice hotel, only to watch someone decide you don't belong there just by looking at you. To see them offer the same room to someone else just because their skin is a different color. The white couple in the middle of the room shifted uncomfortably. The woman had tears in her eyes. Jordan stood up next to his sister. We're not here for revenge, he said, showing maturity beyond his 16 years. We're here because things need to change. Marcus put his hands on his children's shoulders, proud of their courage. Starting today, he announced, this hotel will implement new training programs. We'll be making changes to hiring practices, promotion policies, and customer service protocols. Mr. Peterson? The manager jumped slightly at being addressed. Yes, sir. I want you to work with HR to set up comprehensive diversity and sensitivity training for all staff members. Ms. Walsh. Sarah looked up, expecting to be fired. Yes, Mr. Thompson. You'll be taking a leading role in this training. Nothing teaches better than personal experience. You'll share what happened today and how it can be prevented in the future. The tension in the room began to shift into something different, not exactly relief, but hope. Marcus looked around at the faces of his new employees. Change starts here, he said firmly. And it starts today. This hotel will become an example of how to treat every guest with respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance, background, or status. Is that understood? The room filled with nods and quiet yes, sirs. Maya and Jordan smiled at each other. Their father wasn't just buying a hotel chain. He was transforming it. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at the Grand Plaza Hotel. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Marcus Thompson's new office on the top floor, where he sat reviewing the changes that had already taken place. Diana entered the office, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She placed one on her husband's desk and sat down across from him. How's the progress report looking? She asked, taking a sip from her own cup. Marcus smiled, showing her the papers. Better than expected. Sarah Walsh has surprised everyone, including herself. Indeed, Sarah Walsh had transformed in unexpected ways. After the shame of that first day, she had thrown herself into the new diversity training program. Her personal story of discrimination and learning had become a powerful teaching tool. She now stood before each new training group and shared her mistakes with complete honesty. Yesterday, Marcus said, she stopped another front desk clerk from giving a Latino family a room next to the ice machines when better rooms were available. She's actually becoming our strongest advocate for fair treatment. Down in the lobby, Maya and Jordan were giving a tour to a group of high school students. It was part of their father's new community outreach program, showing young people of color that they could work in or even own high-end hotels. And this, Maya was saying to the group, is where everything changed for our family. Right at this front desk, the students listened with wide eyes as she told them the story. Jordan pointed to the new sign prominently displayed behind the desk. The Grand Plaza Hotel, where every guest is family. It had been Maya's idea, and Marcus had immediately approved it. Mr. Peterson hurried past, carrying a stack of new training manuals. He had surprised everyone by embracing the changes wholeheartedly. Perhaps it was the fear of losing his job, or maybe he had truly learned something. Either way, he now ran the most comprehensive diversity training program in the hotel industry. The white couple who had witnessed the original incident, Steve and Linda Baker, had become regular guests at the hotel. They sat in the lobby now, talking with some of the staff. They had refused the presidential suite that day and had instead asked to be part of the solution. "The transformation in this place is amazing," Linda said to a housekeeper who had stopped to chat. "It feels so much more welcoming now." The housekeeper, Maria, nodded proudly. "Mr. Thompson changed everything. We got better uniforms, better pay, and now everyone gets treated with respect, staff and guests alike." Back in his office, Marcus was showing Diana more changes. "Look at these applications," he said, spreading out papers on his desk. "We've received more job applications in the past 3 weeks than in the previous 6 months. People want to work here now." Diana picked up one application. "Is this really from that famous chef who quit the Riverside Hotel?" Marcus nodded. He said he'd rather work for a hotel that values people than make more money somewhere else. He paused, looking out his window at the city skyline. Sometimes good things come from bad situations. Just then, Maya and Jordan burst into the office, excited after their tour. "Dad, you won't believe this," Maya exclaimed. "3 students from the tour group asked about our internship program." Jordan added, "And one girl said she wants to study hotel management in college now. She said seeing you as the owner made her believe she could do it too." Sarah Walsh knocked on the open door, holding some papers. "Mr. Thompson, the new guest satisfaction surveys are in." She smiled proudly. "Our ratings have gone up 40% since the changes." Marcus looked around at everyone in his office, his family, Sarah Walsh, who had learned from her mistakes, the papers showing positive changes, and the view of his hotel beyond. The incident that could have ended in anger and firing had instead sparked a transformation. "You know what?" he said, standing up. "Let's have a staff appreciation dinner tonight. Everyone, from the maintenance staff to management, will use the grand ballroom." Maya's eyes lit up. "Can I help plan it?" "Of course," Marcus said. "This hotel isn't just our business. It's our way of showing the world how change happens. One person, one policy, one day at a time." As they began planning the dinner, the afternoon sun made the hotel's windows gleam like gold. Inside, people of all colors and backgrounds worked together, served together, and proved that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best changes. 6 months had passed since the incident at the Grand Plaza Hotel. On this particular morning, the Grand Ballroom was filled with cameras and reporters. The hotel had been chosen for a special award from the National Hospitality Association for outstanding achievement in workplace diversity and guest relations. Marcus Thompson stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. In the front row sat his family, Diana, Maya, and Jordan, all dressed elegantly for the occasion. Next to them sat Sarah Walsh, who looked very different from the prejudiced clerk she had been 6 months ago. "When I bought this hotel chain," Marcus began, "I didn't plan to start a revolution in the hospitality industry. Sometimes life gives you unexpected opportunities to make a difference." The cameras flashed as he spoke. Reporters scribbled in their notebooks. This story had caught national attention, not because of the discrimination, but because of what happened afterward. 6 months ago, my family was denied a room in this very hotel," Marcus continued. "Today, I want to share what we've accomplished since then." He clicked a remote, and pictures appeared on the large screen behind him. The images showed the changes that had transformed the hotel. A diverse group of employees in management positions. Happy guests of all backgrounds enjoying the hotel's facilities. Training sessions led by Sarah Walsh. Community outreach programs organized by Maya and Jordan. The new daycare center for staff members' children. The hotel's first ever cultural celebration week. In the audience, Mr. Peterson nodded proudly. He was now the head of diversity training for all Grand Plaza hotels across the country. The program he had developed with Sarah Walsh was being copied by other hotel chains. "But the real story," Marcus said, "isn't about me or my family. It's about every person who has helped make these changes possible." He turned to Sarah Walsh. "Ms. Walsh, would you please join me?" Sarah walked to the podium, her head held high. She had become a different person from the frightened, prejudiced clerk who had tried to turn the Thompsons away. 6 months ago, I was part of the problem," Sarah said into the microphone, her voice clear and strong. Today, I'm proud to be part of the solution. We trained over 500 hotel employees across the country. We've changed policies, but more importantly, we've changed minds and hearts. Maya stood up next, joining them at the podium. At 15 now, she spoke with confidence that inspired everyone who heard her. We could have just fired people and moved on, she said. Instead, my dad chose to create change. Now we have students visiting every week to learn about hotel management. People who never thought they could work in a place like this are now managing our hotels across the country. The audience applauded. In the crowd, Steve and Linda Baker, a white couple who had witnessed the original incident, wiped tears from their eyes. They had become regular volunteers in the hotel's community programs. Jordan joined his sister at the podium. Our hotel's slogan is "Where every guest is family," but it's more than just words. It's how we live every day. The chairman of the National Hospitality Association stepped forward with the award, a beautiful crystal trophy. But before he could present it, Marcus raised his hand. "This award doesn't belong just to me," he said. He called all his staff onto the stage: housekeepers, maintenance workers, front desk clerks, chefs, and managers. They stood together, a rainbow of faces, all wearing their Grand Plaza uniforms with pride. "This belongs to everyone who believed in change," Marcus said, holding up the trophy, "to everyone who learned from mistakes instead of hiding from them, to every guest who gave us a chance to prove ourselves, and to my family who turned an ugly moment into a beautiful opportunity." The ballroom erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Reporters stood up, asking questions. But Marcus was looking at his family, at Sarah Walsh, at his diverse staff, at the proud faces of people who had learned to see beyond skin color. Diana joined her husband at the podium, squeezing his hand. She remembered recording that difficult day 6 months ago on her phone. Now she watched as television cameras recorded this triumph. "You did it," she whispered to Marcus. "No," he replied softly, "we all did it together." The morning sun streamed through the ballroom windows, shining equally on every face in the room, just as it should be. 1 year had passed since Marcus Thompson and his family were denied a room at the Grand Plaza Hotel. On this bright morning, Marcus stood in front of the hotel, surrounded by a large crowd. Behind him hung a huge banner that read, "Grand Plaza Hotel Academy, training tomorrow's leaders today." Maya, now 15, stepped up to cut the red ribbon stretched across the hotel's conference center entrance. She had grown taller over the past year, and more confident too. This project had been her idea after all. "Welcome to the opening of our hotel management training school," Maya announced into the microphone. "A place where anyone, regardless of their background, can learn to run a world-class hotel." The crowd clapped as Jordan helped his sister cut the ribbon. Among the people watching were 20 young students from diverse backgrounds, the Academy's first class. They wore neat uniforms with the Grand Plaza logo, their faces glowing with pride and excitement. Sarah Walsh stood near the front of the crowd. She was no longer just a front desk clerk. She had become the Academy's head instructor. The woman who once turned people away because of their skin color would now teach others about fairness and excellent service. "If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be teaching at a hotel academy," Sarah said to the reporters gathering around her, "I wouldn't have believed them. But Mr. Thompson showed me that people can change when given the chance." Inside the newly renovated conference center, classrooms had been set up with the latest hotel management technology. One room had a complete front desk set up for training. Another had housekeeping stations. There was even a small test kitchen where students could learn about hotel restaurant management. Diana Thompson walked through the rooms, remembering how this all started with her phone recording of discrimination. Now that video was part of the training program, a powerful lesson about what not to do. "The Academy will offer full scholarships to 50 students each year," Marcus explained to the news cameras. "We're focusing on young people from communities that don't usually get these opportunities." Mr. Peterson, who now served as the Academy's career counselor, showed visitors around the facility. "Every graduate is guaranteed a management trainee position at one of our hotels," he explained. "We're not just teaching, we're creating real careers." The white couple who had witnessed the original incident, Steve and Linda Baker, had become regular guest speakers at the Academy. They taught a class about being an active bystander, how to speak up when seeing discrimination. We learned that staying quiet when seeing wrong things happen makes us part of the problem, Linda told the students. Now we teach others to speak up. Later that afternoon, Marcus gathered everyone in the main hall for a special announcement. The room was packed with students, staff, reporters, and community leaders. Today, we're not just opening a training academy, he said, as Maya and Jordan joined him on stage. We're also launching the Thompson Family Foundation for Hotel Management Education. Diana stepped forward with a large check. We're dedicating $50 million to help other hotels create similar training programs, she announced. What happened in our hotel shouldn't happen anywhere. The crowd gasped at the amount. Cameras flashed. The students cheered. One of the new students, a young Hispanic girl named Maria, raised her hand. Mr. Thompson, she asked, did you ever imagine all this would happen when you were denied that room last year? Marcus smiled thoughtfully. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes, he replied. We could have just gotten angry and fired people. Instead, we chose to create opportunities. Sarah Walsh wiped tears from her eyes as she listened. She remembered that day, how close she had come to losing her job. Instead, she had found a new purpose in life. As the celebration continued, Maya showed visitors the Wall of Change, a display showing photos of every person who had helped transform the hotel. There was Marcus buying the hotel, Sarah learning to change, Mr. Peterson creating the training program, and dozens more moments that had led to this day. This isn't just a hotel anymore, Maya told the visitors. It's a place where dreams come true and people learn to see each other as human beings first. Outside, the hotel's new flag waved in the breeze. Under the Grand Plaza name, it now carried the words, where every person's potential shines. 2 years had passed since that fateful day at the Grand Plaza Hotel. The hotel's grand ballroom was filled with hundreds of people celebrating the graduation of the first class from the Hotel Management Academy. The room sparkled with decorations, and a banner read celebrating our first graduates, class of 2026. Marcus Thompson sat on the stage with his family, watching as 50 students in black graduation gowns waited to receive their diplomas. Among them was Maria, the young Hispanic girl who had asked that important question at the academy's opening day. Maya, now 16, stepped up to the podium. She had helped teach some of the classes over the past year, and the students had requested her as their graduation speaker. 2 years ago, Maya began, my family was denied a room in this hotel because of how we looked. Today, we're watching 50 new hotel managers graduate, ready to make sure that never happens to anyone else. In the audience, Sarah Walsh dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She had transformed from the prejudiced clerk into a beloved teacher. Every graduate in the room had learned from her story of change. Ms. Walsh taught us more than just hotel management, Maria said in her valedictorian speech. She taught us that anyone can change if they're willing to learn. She showed us that one mistake doesn't have to define your whole life. Mr. Peterson stood proudly with the other teachers. The training program he had developed was now being used by hotels in 20 different countries. Pictures of his success story hung in the hotel's Hall of Change, right next to the famous photo of the day the Thompsons were denied their room. Jordan, now 18 and preparing for college, handed out the diplomas with his father. Each graduate had already been offered a management position at one of the 100 hotels now owned by the Thompson family. When I was younger, Jordan told the crowd, I used to get angry when people treated us differently. Now I understand that changing minds is better than holding grudges. The white couple, Steve and Linda Baker, sat in the audience with their teenage daughter. She had been inspired by the Thompsons' story and was already enrolled in next year's class. Diana Thompson watched it all with pride, remembering the video she had recorded 2 years ago. That video was now part of a national training program, teaching hotel staff around the world about the cost of discrimination and the power of change. Our first graduating class, Marcus announced, comes from 15 different countries. They speak 12 different languages, but they all share one important belief, that every guest deserves respect. Maria stood at the podium, her valedictorian medal shining. When I was little, my mother cleaned rooms in a hotel, she said. She never dreamed I could become a hotel manager. Mr. Thompson and his family showed us that dreams have no color. The ceremony ended with a surprise announcement. Marcus called all the graduates to the stage and unveiled a new plaque. From now on, he declared, this ballroom will be known as the Room of Second Chances. Because that's what this place gave all of us, a second chance to be better people. Sarah Walsh led the applause, remembering her own second chance. The clerk who once judged people by their skin color now taught others to see the beauty in diversity. After the ceremony, families gathered for pictures. The graduates stood proudly in their new hotel manager uniforms, ready to start their careers. Each one would carry the lesson of the Thompson family's story to their new workplaces. Maya found Maria crying happy tears by the Room of Second Chances plaque. "My mother is coming to work here too," Maria said. "Not as a cleaner, but as a supervisor. Your family changed everything." As the sun set outside the Grand Plaza Hotel, its windows glowed with warm light. Inside, people of all colors and backgrounds celebrated together, proving that one family's response to discrimination had created a wave of positive change that would continue for generations. Marcus looked at his wife and children, then at all the graduates and their families. "This," he said softly, "is the real presidential suite, a room full of dreams come true." The story of the black family denied a hotel room had become a story of triumph, teaching the world that the best revenge against discrimination is creating opportunities for others to succeed.